Hey everyone, today is Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. We're taking a very bumpy road today out into the wilderness. This is a road that's been now abandoned for 3 years. This used to be a very main artery, but because of a major hill along the route that washes out every time it rains heavy during the spring thaw, the road has been rerouted, a more flat route that goes around the mountain instead of over it. So there's one big hill here that we're going to go down because I know that it's going to be in rough condition, but I know we can go down it. This road's no longer being maintained, even after reporting to this company a major beaver issue on here. They even said this road is never going to be taken care of again because it's abandoned. It's not worth the price of keeping it open. But that being said, certain vehicles will be able to make it down here for years to come. Because this road up here, they knew that it washed out a lot, so it's built very rocky. It will be very bumpy, there will be lots of potholes, but it'll stay passable for quite a while. It just washes out the soil they put on top of it to make it smooth. Once the soil washes away, it just leaves a lot of big rocks and ruts behind. Right here, we are at the very top of the hill. We're about to go down it in just a minute. Got some big potholes here. This big open parking lot area used to be a toll plaza back like 20 years ago. Right where these giant concrete things are standing. Used to be a toll you'd have to pay if you wanted to use these roads, because these logging roads are privately owned, and that is the exact reason why you used to have to pay for it. That sign said no snowmobiles on plowed roads. If you can notice here and there is actually pavement, asphalt here and there, because years ago they tried paving it thinking that would stop it from washing out. That idea has been successful in other spots in the area. The pavement has been there for decades and it's still fairly good. There are a lot of potholes in it, and they do not fill the potholes. They come with the grader and that fills them in, which is temporary solutions, but they don't care about the potholes. The pavement was a good solution in certain areas to stop the whole road from washing out all at once. It did actually work. But this hill, no matter how dry it is in the summer, you will see water trickling down it because the groundwater is still active. This trickling water you see on the road right now does not stop in the winter. It freezes and it keeps coming and coming. If you go down certain roads when it's cold out but it hasn't yet snowed, it'll look like little tiny volcanoes. It just keeps growing these lumps taller and taller as the water leaks out of a little hole. Just keeps building. But if there's pavement there, it happens underneath and it lifts it up more and more, making a frost heave. This road's actually not in that bad a shape. The first time I ever took it, when the log trucks used to still use the route, it used to actually be 2 lanes, but if you can see, the other lane is all grown in now. And this road is actually not in the worst shape I've ever seen it. I've seen it in pretty bad shape before. Who knows, maybe somebody privately took a grader down here. Because I imagine this road will always be passable to some extent, maybe. Definitely from the other direction it'll have to be kept open to a little extent, because there are a couple leased plots of land with little cabins on it. So I don't think the logging company would just get rid of those leases or kick those people out. I think it'll be open to some extent because of that. But wow, look at, what's this? They must have used red gravel here. See, it looks all red all over the road. I guess we're gonna have to deal with that noise. Yeah, it looks like just red gravel, or somebody ran over a can of paint. This area, I've never seen them use red gravel before, but I know there's some parts of the woods that it's all they have is red shale rock and stuff. It looks pretty when they lay it down. It makes red roads. because they don't haul anything out this far into the woods. It would cost too much. They just dig up all their own gravel. They don't even bring crushers out. They use shale rock because they can smash it with just the bucket of an excavator. Don't even need a jackhammer usually. All right, now I imagine it's still flooded. I don't think they would have fixed it. There was a huge beaver problem here for years, and this was like an 8-foot flood. We unclogged the culvert 2 years back, and yeah, it took a 3-day process because we had to do a couple feet at a time. It would have been too dangerous to open a culvert with 8 feet of water. It literally would have been impossible to do by hand, so it took a few days. Right here, I can tell during storms does flood. This whole thing is underwater sometimes when there's a ton of rain. But yeah, I still see a flood. But I know this road's built pretty well, so it'll still be passable. The culverts are actually further up on that hump. They build the road like this on purpose because they would rather it flood here than take out the culverts. It's easier to repair the low spot than replace the culverts. Yep, this whole thing's gonna freeze solid. It's just not worth doing it again because the beavers will be right back. And I'm proceeding very slowly just because I haven't been here in a couple months. But I can tell that the road is still gonna be here. I'm just wondering if there is like a fairly small hole or something. Yeah, this is fine. Every time it's gonna get a little deeper, a little bit worse, but the road is pretty rocky. Right next to us, that water is like over 8 feet deep that the beavers caused. The first time we came down here, there was woods between the road and their swamp. The beavers cut down the whole tree line to plug that pipe, and we're through it. Yeah, I feel like they fixed that hill. Somebody fixed it at least. That hill didn't seem as bad as it's been in years past. But now we're in some low-lying swamp areas with a lot of potholes, unless they fixed it. This road should have potholes everywhere for the next couple miles before we reconnect with the new main artery. Yeah, here's more. All these low areas where water crosses the roads. Oh, there's a moose in the road. You see it? There's a moose up there. Wow, these bumps are bad. Yeah. I don't think we'll see the moose. I'm not driving that fast over the bumps to catch up with him. Now that he went around the corner, I probably ran in the woods. We'll find out when the road straightens back out, but he probably ran up like this road right here. Be surprised if the moose didn't. Yeah, I don't see him. Well, at least there was a moose out here tonight. First one I've seen in a bit. That noise you're hearing in the back is a plastic bin filled with trail cameras. I don't even know if I'm going to do it. I thought about leaving some trail cameras out the whole winter. I don't think I'll do it. This is the road with the little cabins and things on it. So they'll have to keep this section open at least to the main artery. But it's still in bad shape. I wonder if they actually have to keep the road passable because there's people leasing land out here. I wonder if that's like in their contract, if they actually have to make this road be passable, and if it clarifies passable to what. Because basically anything can navigate these roads if they're careful, but it's easy to ruin certain vehicles. I've seen people come out here and just destroy their oil pans. There's a lot of holes here. Before they made the new road going around this section of road used to actually intimidate a lot of tourists, because this used to be the main entrance to get to a huge section of wilderness, and this would intimidate a lot of people because you got multiple miles of this, and if you're doing this in a smaller vehicle, it feels a lot worse. And a lot of people this will make turn around because they think the whole wilderness will be like this, but it's only this section of road. Then everything, the roads actually get so good you can travel at like 50 miles an hour without a single problem. They're so well maintained, some of those wilderness roads. But this one section has always been like this because they'll fix it and it's right back to this in no time. It's just the way the land is, and it would cost too much, I guess, to raise the road up where frost heaving and stuff wouldn't affect it. But now that the new road goes around it, that road's nice and smooth. We would have been to the other end of this. Even though the new road is longer, we would have been there in half the time at least. Like, there's been times, because Google Map will still send everyone down this road. Google Map doesn't even recognize the new road yet, even though it's been there a couple years. So a lot of times if I'm behind someone slow, I'm like, wow, thankfully they took this road, because I can always beat them to the other end with the new road. Alright, this part of the road I can tell sometimes goes underwater. Looks like evidence of water sitting here. But I don't think there's pipes or anything like that around. I think we're about to hit the the new road in a moment. Those trees that are down in the road we just went by, I remember when those first fell down, it was hard to get around them, but now they're just so crushed. So that road there, it's not hard to go down, it just, a lot of bumps. Doesn't feel like you're gonna get stuck anywhere, just very bumpy. Alright, we're definitely to the new road now. Yep. This is the new main artery. If you take the left, and this is where this road always continued. It looks like they just graded it before the winter, so it is going to be a little bumpy until all these rocks get packed down or pushed over to the side for people using it. I can tell this was recently all fixed and graded. I gotta send some heavy log trucks, and that'll make it nice and smooth. Steamroll it with those trucks. Now we're going almost 30 miles an hour. That last road I couldn't get over 10 with all those bumps. So the road we're on now, once this smooths out, it gets really nice. This will go up because it's all loose. Them recently fixing it. This will be a dust storm in a couple days if it's dry out for just those couple days. Even if it's cold out, the road can still dry up. I was surprised certain times it would be below freezing out, but super dusty still. this part of the road is packed down a lot more. It's smoother. I can go a bit faster. I'm not going to go that fast in case there's something in the road at night. The speed limit here is 45. I'm still going to keep it at about 30 just in case of an animal. But the road here is considerably smoother since it's packed down nicely. We actually just drove by the maintenance yard. That's probably where the grader is. I don't think this needs repairing, so they probably just parked it there until it's ready for snow. A lot of the graders, they'll put a giant snow plow on the front of it, because that's a powerful machine, good for snow too. They'll put chains on it. I never understood why they don't use a lot of graders in cities when they're plowing snow. I remember years ago, the city I used to live in, they had a huge snowstorm where they were so overwhelmed that they couldn't keep up with it. And what happened was, because they couldn't clear certain roads for days, there wasn't enough plow drivers, it became so packed down by people driving on it, and it was so cold that salt didn't work. So for weeks, the city was a pothole mess. Not pothole mess, but an icy mess with a bunch of holes in the ice on the roads. So it was very bumpy. I don't know why they never used graders or anything. I feel like that would have peeled the ice right off the road. I know some countries, I saw pictures of them on the internet, their plow trucks, the dump trucks, actually have a grader blade that they can drop down underneath the truck for that exact purpose. Yeah, a lot of times salt doesn't really work if it gets below the teens or something like that. If it's single digits, salt just isn't going to do much. That's usually when they just put down sand or little gravel for traction rather than actually trying to melt it. Still very nice. It's unseasonably warm right now after a very cool summer. This week is going to be in the upper 60s for a couple days. We had a big freeze last night, but won't have another freeze for at least 5 days. The growing season went on quite a while. It just ended last night, for me at least. Had a deep freeze, and even some of the plants survived that. Deep freeze after a rainstorm, so everything was like black ice. They didn't put down salt though. That's coming soon though. They'll be salting all the roads. Just give it a matter of time, or a little bit of time, and they'll be putting it down everywhere. That washed out 2 years ago, actually. That bridge has been out for a couple years and they just replaced it. And there's a lot of people up there also that have leased property. The logging companies will just lease you land and you can build a house on it, or most people put a temporary house I personally can't imagine building something on leased land where they could not renew the lease at any time. But they just rebuilt the bridge. That was quite the detour to get to those houses for 2 years. Now you can actually buy land from the logging company, but you don't even want to know how much they'll probably charge for that. The only person out here I ever talked to that they actually sold land to, that guy begged them for that land for decades, and they kept saying no until they finally said yes, but it cost millions of dollars for that property. But the logging company would probably assumed, we're never going to make money off this other than a lease. It'll never be logging property again because there was so many buildings. That's probably why. But I don't think they ever would have made those millions back in any of the owners' lifetimes of that logging company from that piece of land. So that's probably why also. It was 17 acres, by the way, that property they sold for all that money. It was also, I believe, the majority of it was too close to a lake, so they wouldn't be able to legally log most of it anyways. So it's basically useless to a logging company. I think it's either 50 or 100 feet they're not allowed to get near bodies of water. For some reason, swamps are classified differently. They can log a swamp if they want. They'll go in there in the winter when it's frozen, so no one gets stuck. Years ago, when they first opened a lot of these roads, and I mean like 100 years ago, not even 100 years ago, 100 years ago, they didn't use many log trucks. They used the waterways after storms. When the rivers and creeks were really high, they'd float all the logs down to bodies of water, and that's how they got them to the sawmill. Oh, look, there's another moose in the road. Look at this guy. That's a big fat moose. Ooh. Boom. I just want to give you guys a little look at this moose. We're gonna let him go now. We're not gonna stress him out. That guy will disappear in a moment. What was I talking about? He's turning around and looking back here. I'm gonna shut the lights off because with the lights on, that moose just sees the sides of the road as black walls. I'm gonna blow the horn. Hopefully that scared him off. Yep, I saw his tail walking into the woods. Moose is gone. Because that moose, he'd run in front of you for miles, tiring himself out. Because the moose cannot see the tree line with your headlights behind it. Moose is gone. Oh, but what I was talking about is, yeah, they didn't really use log trucks until like the 1930s. Before that, they just floated them mostly in bodies of water or used trains. Like I've showed the abandoned trains they have in Maine. They'd only operated for a little amount of time, and then the Great Depression made them shut it down, and by the time it became feasible to start it back up, steam trains were obsolete and they're all abandoned in the woods. Now they use trucks. But back when they first started using trucks, things like the EPA never got in their way, so they were allowed to log close to waterways. They didn't even need bridges. They would just drive the trucks across the river when the river wasn't very deep, but that caused erosion to the banks of the river. Every time a truck went through it, it put tons of silt into the water, which they're not allowed to do these days. So they have to actually have bridges. But those, I bet, were just for very temporary roads, the water crossing, because it seems like unless it was very rocky, it would just get washed out anyways, trucks continuously battering it. So I'm sure they still had tons of bridges even along with that stuff. That was cool. We saw 2 moose today in this video. I made a video before this earlier in the night and we didn't see anything. So I guess when I go out intentionally trying to find a moose, they don't seem to happen on camera. But I didn't plan on seeing anything tonight. And there was 2 of them. The road's getting a little bit bad again. So maybe they will grade this before it freezes. They only got like another good week or 2 before the road gets too frozen to do that. Not too much time remaining. Speed down again because of all the potholes. You see all these dark areas of the road where groundwater is active? That's where you got the giant potholes and bumps forming in the winter. Come back out here in another month, it'll be icy, very icy. Most of the roads, you don't even really need tire chains on. They're usually in pretty good shape. They actually put down gravel and stuff on the roads. A lot of these roads, they do throw things like gravel and dirt on them to make traction because the trucks can move faster than having chains on all the wheels. If their trucks all are chained up, they can't move as fast. And it means they're actually losing money. So I noticed that especially last year. The roads are treated and most of the big trucks don't have chains, but then you go down a road they're not using, it'll be like a skating rink where I actually had to buy chains last year to go down certain roads. I was told to put chains on this vehicle properly. Like I can put them in the back without a problem, but the front, the chain will actually hit the shocks, so when I go to get winter tires, they're gonna put like an inch spacer in there. I don't think anyone will really notice an inch. I'm not gonna go crazy with a spacer like some people do. Plus a spacer will actually make your bearings wear out faster if you have it on all the time. Not this state, but I know a lot of states, they don't allow you to have spacers unless you put bigger fenders on the truck. It's illegal to have the wheel protruding off the side at all. I feel like that's so it doesn't throw things like mud and rocks at other cars. That's why it's a violation if the DOT sees a big truck with mud flaps missing, because it can throw rocks at cars that are behind it. I've ever seen this road. Also not the best. There's been a good amount of rain. That being said, it's in good condition. I can't wait until the spring. We'll do some more of those videos where we're the first vehicle down a lot of roads when they first become passable again. A lot of people liked watching those videos. First vehicle of the year. And when you're the first vehicle of the year, you gotta use extra caution because you can find missing culverts and missing bridges. You could also be the first vehicle to fall into an area if the edges of the pipe or bridge are gone. but it hasn't sunk up top yet. A lot of times, if you're the first vehicle of the year, it's a good idea to get out and inspect the bridge before going across it, because a lot of the bridges out here, even on the permanent roads, they don't have foundations because they want it to be easy to install, easy to replace if the bridge does go missing in the winter. Because a lot of the bridges, they're on giant concrete blocks, and then it's a wooden deck. So if it floods, that wooden deck is just going to float away and never be found again, off into the wilderness. Some of these roads we travel are even over 100 miles away from any town. And when you're just going 100 miles, when the roads are in this shape, you use a lot more fuel. So you can't make it out to a lot of spots unless you bring gas cans or extra fuel somehow. And for the type of things I do out here, having a second gas tank actually was one of the better things I've done. Because I used to carry 6 or 8 gas cans with my old vehicle. And this vehicle's bigger, so it obviously uses more fuel, so I would have needed even more to do the equivalent. So I had a bigger gas tank put on. It still doesn't do as much as I used to be able to do, because it would just be too much to carry, but it still goes a long way. It's all about how you're driving on these roads. In today's video, I'm driving pretty slow, pretty gently, so I'm getting about 19 mpg. But if I wanted to drive down these roads very fast and actually keep their speed limits, I'd be slamming the brakes on all the time with the potholes. I'm going at a speed now, I don't really have to touch the brakes, meaning I don't have to take off again, so I'm getting a lot better mileage than I usually would. But on these roads, I typically have anywhere between 800, maybe a little bit more miles range. But even with 800 miles, that sometimes only means being out here 2 or 3 days. If we don't find a lot of things to film, we'll just be driving the whole time, and that is what we'll use that up. But I remember, especially last year, just 3 times at least, gasoline cans must have fell over in the back, and I never noticed them because you could already smell fumes before it even tipped over. So until the fumes get extremely bad, I didn't even notice one of them was leaking. And most gas cans these days are garbage. The gaskets start leaking, like those cheap ones that you pick up at Walmart. When you first get them, they're awesome. They don't leak fumes at all. But you fill them up a couple times, just that couple times of unscrewing and tightening them again, it ruins the rubber washer that's in them. And that's when they start leaking. But if they're upright, they actually do a pretty good job. You don't smell them too much, even when the gasket goes bad, but they'll still leak. Or I'll have to do it again. I made some like aerodynamic shields under the front of the vehicle, and that got rid of the tire noise when I was going faster in videos. A lot of people, at first a lot of people thought it was interesting, the loud tire noise, the humming sound, and maybe it was good to keep animals away, but eventually it just got annoying driving with that all the time. So making some aerodynamic shields actually really helped. The tire noise is almost gone, despite having the rugged tires. So it wasn't road noise per se, it was how the wind was hitting the treads at those speeds. It was wind noise, it turns out. It wasn't road noise. And I feel like at highway speeds it may have made the gas mileage slightly better. But I've always got better MPG than the truck is supposed to get, just because of how I drive. Wonder if we'll see any more moose out here tonight. This year was one of the best years we ever had as far as making unclogging videos. I'm sure a lot of you guys noticed that if you were watching the channel in the spring, but lately we go out on these really far rural trips, and yeah, the blockages have become so scarce. That's why we come this far out in the middle of nowhere to seek for them. But even being out for days at a time this far out, I'm sure we'll find one cool video to film, but they're very scarce these days. That's why I haven't been doing it as much lately. Maybe in the winter I'll drive down south like I've been wanting to do for a while. Maybe we can find some cool things down there when it's winter. When it's colder weather, it'll keep all the venomous creatures away, because I know down south they got a lot of signs and things warning of the snakes and things, but I would want to visit when it's cold enough, like below freezing, where it would keep all that stuff away. So I wonder what kind of cool places down south there are to explore. If anyone has ideas in the comments for things like that, I'm interested in that stuff. Sometimes I can just go on the internet for a little while. You can always find certain cool things that are open to the public, like abandoned structures. But a lot of the things I film are actually just from driving around randomly. You never know what you could find. They actually got maps and things, Google Maps, that purposely keep you like away from dirt roads, but I usually look at the map myself and plot into things like that. Usually you find cooler things if you stick to the very far back roads. Tree right there is still bright yellow. There are still some fall colors out here. That looked like an aspen tree, that big yellow one. Must be pretty healthy. All the aspen trees around where I live, they didn't even look beautiful this year. They just turned brown and dropped a lot of leaves. I wonder if they grade the road like that on purpose. Like that, with these horrible ruts. like to get water off it. I actually don't know if they do that on purpose or not. You see, this here is actual pavement, because years ago it used to wash out a lot in this area, so they paved it, and now the grader just smooths dirt over the top of it to fill the holes, and when it rains it washes off. That's why it's actually kind of smooth here, but there are some bad potholes you gotta watch out for. A pothole in the asphalt is far worse than in the dirt road, because in the asphalt they usually got sharp edges that'll pop tires if you hit them hard, while the dirt potholes, they're usually rounded like a bowl. They can be hard when you hit them on your suspension, but they're not very likely to actually pop a tire unless there's a sharp rock in there, which is unrelated. Yeah, you see there's enough dirt on the asphalt that they're actually able to grade it like this. We're driving over a culvert. Got one deep freeze, so I have no idea if that closed them or not, because their water's all above ground. That's why they shut down in the winter. Plus there's not enough tourists to actually warrant leaving it open in the winter. Get plenty of snowmobilers, but still it's not that many people. A lot of the snowmobiles just drive in themselves, which they don't have to pay the toll because they're not on the road. Now, when you see a sign out here that says no snowmobiles on the road, a lot of times you see them make a trail next to the road, like on top of the snowbank. And I guess that's technically right. They're not in the road, like the sign says, or they're not on the road. I see that a lot. Because a lot of these roads are not paved. I think one of the most dangerous times to come out into the wilderness is when it starts getting cold out. Because if there happens to be a big snowstorm you don't know about, you could get trapped on one of the roads that doesn't get plowed. Even some of the plowed roads, they might not plow it the whole season. They might just be plowing it because they're working on it, but there are some very main arteries that they're always going to be plowed, just because there's certain things on them, like houses, even this far out. Most of those houses are obviously, they're probably people who work out here all the time. Or there's just some houses out here, they're vacation houses. You can tell they're abandoned for the winter. Or they're like someone's apocalypse getaway. You'll see like a giant mansion every now and then out in the middle of nowhere down an overgrown road. ones that are actually heated or something, and they're probably, none of them are heated, or they're probably winterized and they probably just don't use the water in the winter. But any of them that are actually heated, their tanks are huge for heating oil. They'll have like a 1,000-gallon tank, or even a couple of them, to make sure they don't have to get a fuel delivery in the winter, because the weather's unpredictable. The roads are dangerous, I think, for a fuel truck to make it up here. But I guess it all depends what you're willing to pay, because I'm sure if the road's in bad shape, you're going to have to pay that driver for their time. I know even my driveway, it's not that long, but if it's icy, there's certain oil companies that won't let their drivers up it, but a company like Irving, they seem to go anywhere. They'll just put chains on the wheels and go up it. Doesn't seem to affect those drivers. But it's actually rare when you find a truck like that that doesn't have automatic chains. With a push of a button, it just turns on the chains. It's like a spindle with little links of chain it just throws in front of the wheels. Now that's not good in deep snow, it's just good on icy roads. Deep snow, I don't think they can actually function properly. Deep snow, you still need normal chains. Certain oil trucks won't come out to areas if it's too icy, but I just mentioned Irving doesn't seem to have a problem having their guys chain up. Yeah, my driveway is like, it's got a lot of frost heaving, so it's impossible for it to not be a sheet of ice. The water leaks out of it non-stop all year long. And it's actually fun. The ice on it. It's got to go really slow and you won't slip off it, but it's fun to, it doesn't have much of a hill, but it's good to put a sled down it when it's icy like that. I tried to solve the ice problem by putting many inches of gravel over it, just pure stone, not usually dirt roads. They'll use sand mixed with 3/4 inch gravel because it packs very nicely and it's smooth. No, I just put down gravel, which is not smooth, so the water could pass underneath it and not always be a mud hole. Works perfect in the summer, but winter it clogs the gravel up pretty fast with ice, and it doesn't make too much of a difference. It does make a difference though. Certain areas don't freeze up and it gives you traction actually a lot better. The first time I did that, they brought over 2 10-wheel dump trucks and they ended up having to use one of the entire trucks to fill the rut the truck itself made. It sunk that deep into the driveway. So I smoothed out all that gravel, and then the second 10-wheel truck, I just had to dump it at the end because the truck obviously couldn't make it up the driveway, and I used a wagon over a course of a couple of days to move it. I think that's like, was 40,000 pounds of gravel that truck was able to have in it. That one truck, like 22 tons, something like that it was carrying. But that time of year could not make it up the driveway. It just sunk until the truck got stuck. So they had to unload it where it was to get out. despite being so far out, there's actually power poles. Because we are near the hydroelectric dam at Ripogenis. There's like a very narrow canyon here you can walk up to. It's a couple 100 feet deep, it looks like. Perfect spot for them to build a dam. This area of Maine, you'll see lots of school buses coming up here in the summer with rafts, like whitewater rafting tied to the top of the buses at the base of the dam when the water's flowing a lot. The really big power lines leaving the hydro dam. Those other tiny ones we saw earlier are just going to a couple houses up here, which is convenient because they don't have to have generators. Every house that's super far in the wilderness, it's got to have diesel generators or a solar field. There used to be a fun campground I used to go to a lot up here as a little kid, and that guy had a solar field for his house that he lived at year round. He used snowmobiles only to get out of there in the winter since it wasn't worth plowing, and the campground ran off of a diesel generator because solar would have been too expensive back then, and the diesel generator was even expensive to run. It was also noisy, so it only ran for a couple hours in the morning and a couple hours at night. And those couple of hours are when people would use the power to charge up things, cook with. Actually, I don't even think it had electric stoves, that place. But the couple hours here and there would keep all the refrigerators cold. Because most refrigerators, they're insulated enough that they can go most of the day without being on. And once they get power, it cools down very quickly. Maybe this guy's sleeping in the car or doing some nighttime fishing. This is a very popular area for people fishing because of all the rapids. I guess the fish really like it. Do not linger on bridge because there's a blind corner here where a 200,000 pound truck might not be able to stop if you're stopped there taking pictures. There's a parking lot here if people want to walk back to the bridge and take pictures. And this is the last paved section, points north. You can stay on these roads another 5 hours until you get really far up there. I think you can even go further until you hit the Canada border. Nothing now but wilderness. But it is kind of cool. There are like little off-grid neighborhoods, far and few between. Most of them are logging camps, but some of them are just seasonal houses where people lease the land from a logging company and they'll put a little cabin on it. Usually like a shed that they have delivered on a truck, and they'll convert it, putting walls in it. Usually the simplest way to make a tiny house, just buy a shed and convert it. A lot of sheds even have a loft already built in there. out here in the entire wilderness in Maine, there's only like one spot actually that gets a good signal. Most of it out here, there's no signals anywhere. Now there's a button in the truck that is like it says it's an SOS button that's supposed to, well, some people told me it runs off the satellite system, and some people say it runs off a radio cell tower. If it runs off a cell tower, that's kind of stupid. It seems actually pointless even having it. So I plan on testing that at some point this trip when there's no signal around anywhere, seeing if it actually runs off satellite or not. If it runs off satellite, that's good for peace of mind, because it's literally a satellite phone that can just call 911. Otherwise, in my eyes, it's useless. It says it can call emergency services if your airbags are deployed, things like that, if it detects a crash. But if it doesn't run off the satellite, I don't even know what's the point of even having an emergency system like that. It should have a satellite phone at least. Can test it now, I guess, and see what it does.
Connecting to the emergency call center. To cancel, please press the button again. Emergency call canceled.
Well, it didn't say there was no signal, so maybe it would work. Maybe during normal business hours I'll actually let it go through and actually test it. I think I'll maybe do that, see if it actually connects to anything. But I guess that's a good sign that it didn't tell me there was no signal. Older vehicles, when I forget what company it is, when OnStar first became a thing, this is a Toyota, so it has something similar, but it's not called that. I've seen other people's videos that they will literally try using it when there's no signal, and it says on the screen that there is no signal to even use it. So maybe that improved by now. Because for like the past 10 years, I think vehicles have been being built with satellite radios. So it doesn't, you don't have to use FM radio, which is good when you're in the wilderness because you're too far out to get really any FM stations, or you'll get one and it'll be gone a couple minutes later. When the satellite radio, it works unless you're next to a mountain blocking wherever the satellite is in the sky. If it's blocking it, then it won't work. Or it'll be constantly cutting in and out. I noticed if there's dense wildfire smoke or something, that actually can mess with the signal. I realized earlier in the year, or just really thick tree cover can also mess with it, it appears. But for the most part, it works good in rural places because you don't have to worry about the station dropping. But also, on the other hand, FM radio, as you get away from the source, you can still listen to it for quite a while. It just becomes more and more staticky until it becomes where you can't even understand it anymore. With a satellite radio, it doesn't let it become staticky. It just drops, which can be annoying if it's constantly every couple seconds turning back on and off, on and off. That can become annoying after a while, and I'll just shut it off. But I hope that button surveillance system. I think it would be stupid if it didn't. I've been told that iPhones can run off of the satellite just for emergency calls. Is that true? I don't know. Well, we did see one car tonight. When you get pretty far out, we're not that far out, but I've been far enough out here in the winter. You go days without seeing a car. Maybe it's just luck.